There are so many telltale signs that something is clearly wrong with Meghan. And I don't mean it in a bad way, but I mean, how can you get your age so wrong?
This birthday, this 45th birthday, has turned into an absolute disaster for Meghan Markle.
I'm going to quote Tom Bower by saying, he said, look, we all laughed at Samantha and she was right. And everything she said has come true.
Meghan Markle has lied about her age. Is she actually older?
This doesn't make sense. There's something incredibly fishy, and expose how old she really is.
She will be 46 in August on her birthday.
The lies come out.
Classic.
But there were so many of them.
There's something incredibly fishy, and expose how old she really is.
Meghan Markle's latest birthday celebration was supposed to be a simple milestone. The palace marked her as turning 45. Newspapers repeated it without hesitation. Millions accepted it as fact and moved on. But then an old magazine, a royal biographer, and Meghan's own half-sister pulled the spotlight in a completely different direction. Together, they pointed to one question that refuses to disappear. What if the date everyone has accepted for years is not the whole story? And if that question ever received a definitive answer, the consequences could stretch far beyond a birthday, reaching into her public image, royal status, and the life she has carefully built over the years. 1981. According to those questioning the timeline, that isn't simply an internet rumor tossed around for clicks. They argue it is something far more tangible. It's not hearsay, it's ink on paper. March 1997, 17 magazine, page 90. Right there, inside a lifestyle feature highlighting a group of young women from Los Angeles, one familiar name appears, Meghan Markle. Printed beside that name is an age that immediately catches attention.
This is a copy of 17 magazine, and it was published in March of 1997. In it, it mentions our Megzy is from Los Angeles and that she was 21 years old at the time of publication. That would make her birth year at around 1976. However, why is it saying here she was born 5 years later in 1981?
This is a page from a very, very old 17 magazine. And here it looks like Megzy was like a teen contributor, a young person's contributor to the magazine. And you'll see here that they contribute her as Meghan Markle, age 21, in Los Angeles, in California. Now, this edition of the 17 magazine was released back in 1997. So, if this is to be believed, and she was 21 at the time in 1997, that would make her birthday as 1976.
Oh no, what a shame. What a shame how this lady has turned 45. And Link, it's just such bad news because all of a sudden, this birthday, this 45th birthday, has turned into an absolute disaster for Meghan Markle.
21. For critics, that single detail became the spark for a much larger debate that still refuses to fade. If Meghan was really born on August 4th, 1981, the date she's given the world for decades, then in March of 97, she would have been 15. That's a 6-year gap sitting in a physical magazine archive that anyone with a library card can verify. Now, some people will say it's a typo. Fair enough. Magazines make mistakes, but the name is right. The location is right. The photo matches.
Is Megzy really lying about her age? Now, when you Google her, it says that she was born on the 4th of August, 1981. And with today being a birthday, as of me recording this video, it's saying that she's 44 years old.
You're wondering, why does her age matter at all? Because her age would also have an impact on her ability to have children. Because if Meghan Markle is 4 years older than what we have been led to believe, it makes it even more difficult to believe that she was able to get pregnant so quickly. Never mind the hysterectomy stories that her family have told. But that would make it more difficult because that would make Meghan Markle near 50.
No, I choose people who don't want to be written about on the whole, whose lives are shrouded in mystery and they want to hide their secrets. And I just love digging away to find out what they don't want us to know. I wrote 4 years ago a book about Prince Charles, and it was a story about how he had rehabilitated himself after Diana's death and how Camilla also had to be rehabilitated. And it was a #1. It was a fascinating story.
Everything lines up with Meghan Markle from Los Angeles, California. The only thing that doesn't fit is her official birthday. And this isn't some screenshot floating around the internet that someone could have doctored. This is a printed, published, distributed magazine that sat on newsstands across America. It exists. And in the world of royal record keeping, where every date and document is supposed to be rock solid, one line on page 90 just cracked the foundation. But that magazine listing wasn't the end of the mystery. It was only the beginning. Because once Tom Bower started digging into the story, he reportedly didn't stop at a single inconsistency.
Meghan is a consummate survival actress. And you raise this extraordinary beginning of the year when she carved 2025 in the sand. And it's a very, very interesting image that it came out on New Year's Day this year, because the previous weeks had been absolutely turgid and torrid for her. She had been dubbed Duchess Difficult again. There had been allegations of bullying.
Tyrant in high heels.
What the hell is going on with this woman? Is she adopted or is she just a natural? I mean, is she such a liar she can't even understand that we can all see her?
Stupidly put out so many dumb lies, the car chase, etc., that now nobody believes anything they say. And that's scary and dangerous because it sometimes puts us off in directions that we need to be better about. But man, the more and more I look at and research this stuff, I'm not obsessed with these two. I'm looking at them with a very clear eye.
According to his research, he found what he believed was a wider pattern stretching across multiple records. Tom Bower is not a YouTuber. He's one of Britain's most feared investigative biographers, the man who took down Robert Maxwell and wrote exposés on Prince Charles himself. And his latest research hasn't just gone after Meghan's character, it's gone after her timeline. Bower reportedly uncovered that Meghan's IMDb page, her professional acting profile, the one casting directors use, originally listed her birth year as 1977, not 81. 77. At some point, it was quietly changed. Nobody announced it. Nobody explained it. It just shifted. And Bower says he has the screenshots to prove it. The questions didn't stop with old magazine archives. According to Tom Bower's reporting, they followed Meghan's timeline all the way to Northwestern University, where another series of details reportedly caught his attention. On paper, everything appeared straightforward. Meghan graduated in 2003.
What is going on here? Why the secrecy around this woman's birth certificate? Why the secrecy? Why the mistakes in age that are so blatant for others? And you know what? This is like her education in university, that she claims that she double major in international relations and theater when Northwestern has never given a major in international relations.
Today felt like the perfect day to address a theory that many people out there have been speculating on, that Meghan Markle has lied about her age. Is she actually older?
And based on her publicly stated birth year, she would have been 22 when she crossed the stage to receive her diploma. At first glance, the timeline looked perfectly consistent, leaving little reason for anyone to look any deeper. But Bower reportedly did look deeper. He tracked down former classmates, he searched alumni directories, he examined group photographs, including one from Northwestern University's Salsa Club, where Meghan appears standing in the back row alongside more than a dozen fellow students. According to Bower, when he contacted several people visible in that photo and asked about their birth years, he said they all gave remarkably similar answers. The early 1970s. Not the early 80s, the early 70s. According to Bower's account, that raised another question. Either Meghan was a 20-year-old who almost exclusively spent time with classmates, roughly 10 years older than herself, or she was actually much closer to their age. Those are the possibilities presented in his investigation. One former classmate who reportedly spoke on condition of anonymity allegedly told Bower, "We all knew Meghan was older than she claimed." The source reportedly added that it wasn't treated like a major issue back then. According to that account, people simply accepted it and carried on with their lives. But years later, after Meghan entered the royal family and every detail of her public biography came under intense examination, the subject resurfaced. Critics began asking whether, if there were genuine inconsistencies surrounding her age, other parts of her personal timeline might also deserve closer scrutiny. Then came what Bower described as an unexpected moment during his interview with Thomas Markle. He reportedly asked a straightforward question: what year was Meghan born? Thomas didn't immediately answer with 1981. In fact, according to Bower's account, he didn't give a direct answer at all. Instead, there was a noticeable pause. Then he reportedly said something that caught Bower's attention. "You should check the records yourself." Supporters of Meghan may interpret that response in different ways. Others see it as unusual. Either way, it became another talking point in the wider debate surrounding her public timeline. And that wasn't where the questions ended. The discussion soon shifted to another story Meghan has repeated over the years, involving a frozen yogurt shop and one of her best-known childhood anecdotes. Remember Meghan's famous story about writing to Procter & Gamble at age 11 to change a sexist dish soap commercial? She's told it at the United Nations. She told it at South by Southwest. She always says 11. But the Nick News clip from 1993, the actual footage, has been described by some sources as identifying her as 12, while reports have noted that Vanity Fair omitted the anecdote from its 2017 cover story after fact-checking questions were reportedly raised about parts of the account. Then there's the frozen yogurt shop. Meghan has shared this story on multiple occasions, saying she worked at Humphrey Yogurt in Los Angeles when she was 13. She also mentioned it during her interview with Oprah, and it became part of the personal story she often tells about her early years. However, former management at Humphrey Yogurt reportedly stated that they never hired employees as young as 13, adding yet another point that critics have used when questioning parts of her timeline. The timeline debate becomes even more complicated when attention shifts to one of Meghan's own personal stories. On the surface, it sounds like an ordinary childhood memory, but critics argue that once the dates are placed side by side, the details begin raising fresh questions that are difficult to ignore. According to those examining the timeline, this isn't simply about one encounter. They believe it's another piece that they say doesn't fit neatly with the official version of events. The focus is what Meghan says happened in a parking lot while working around a frozen yogurt shop. She is recalled crossing paths with her celebrity idol Yasmin Bleeth, the Baywatch star, while taking the bins outside. According to Meghan's account, the young teenager excitedly told Bleeth how much she loved her soft and dry deodorant commercial. It sounds like a perfectly harmless memory, until critics compare it with the advertising timeline. According to those questioning the story, Yasmin Bleeth's association with the soft and dry brand and the commercials most people remember began in the late 1990s, around 1997 or 1998. If Meghan was actually 13 years old in 1994, based on her publicly stated birth year, those commercials reportedly had not yet aired. That immediately leads critics to another question. How could a 13-year-old compliment a celebrity for a commercial that, according to that timeline, wouldn't appear until several years later? One inconsistency might be dismissed as an honest mistake. Two may simply invite curiosity. But supporters of this theory argue that once multiple discrepancies appear across different stories, they believe each new detail deserves closer examination. And among the people who have insisted on looking closely for years is Samantha Markle. For a long time, Samantha's claims were widely dismissed. She was called jealous. She was called bitter. Many people argued that her comments should not be taken seriously. Yet Tom Bower has reportedly said, "We all laughed at Samantha and she was right. Everything she said has come true." Samantha Markle, for her part, has maintained the same general version of events for years. According to public records, she was born in November 1964. Meghan has consistently stated that she was born in August 1981, creating an age difference of about 17 years. Under that timeline, Samantha would already have been an adult when Meghan was still a small child, but Samantha has repeatedly argued that the gap between them was much smaller. She has described Meghan not as a much younger sibling she barely knew, but as a little sister close enough in age to spend meaningful time with while growing up. According to Samantha's recollections, they shared experiences that, in her view, would make more sense if the age difference were considerably narrower than the official timeline suggests. Then came an email that reignited the discussion. In 2018, Meghan prepared briefing notes for her former communications secretary, Jason Nauf, before his meeting with the authors of Finding Freedom. That email was later released during proceedings connected to the Court of Appeal. In the message, Meghan wrote that when her mother, Doria, left Thomas, Meghan was 2 years old and his other children were 15 and 17. Critics immediately focused on those numbers. If Samantha was 15 when Meghan was 2, that creates a 13-year age gap, not 17. Using Samantha's publicly recorded birth year of 1964, adding 13 points to 1977 rather than 1981. Supporters of this theory argue that Meghan's own wording, contained in a legal document, appears to outline a timeline that they believe conflicts with her publicly stated birth year by 4 years. The discussion didn't end with Samantha Markle's public comments. Instead, supporters of this theory argue that each new detail only added another layer to the debate. While some believe her claims deserve serious attention, others remain unconvinced. Even so, when different accounts are placed side by side, critics say the timeline becomes much harder to ignore and far more complicated than it first appears. Samantha's own book lists Meghan's birth year as 1981, although it gives the date as August 31st instead of August 4th. At first glance, that would seem to support the official timeline. However, Samantha has also publicly maintained that the age gap between them was always smaller than Meghan has claimed. Supporters of Samantha's version argue that when those statements are compared with Meghan's own email and other reported details, they believe the numbers begin pointing in a different direction. For years, Samantha faced heavy criticism. She was called a liar. She was accused of making stories up. Many dismissed her claims entirely. But those who support her position argue that piece by piece, later developments have encouraged people to revisit what she had been saying all along. Whether that ultimately proves anything remains disputed, but the conversation has certainly not disappeared. And Samantha isn't the only person whose account has been linked to the alternate 1977 theory. During a 2013 interview with Larry King, Meghan shared a light-hearted story about her first kiss during summer theater camp in Los Angeles. According to Meghan, she was 13 years old, and the boy involved was Joshua Silverstein. Silverstein later confirmed that they knew one another and told Inside Edition they met at a theater camp around 1993 or 1994. He has also appeared publicly as a beatbox performer, including on The Late Late Show with James Corden. This is where supporters of the theory believe another question appears. IMDb has listed Silverstein's birth year as 1980, a date that would place both of them at roughly the same age during camp. However, several celebrity biography websites have listed his birth year as 1977 instead. Some online commentators have even speculated that information connected to his age changed over time, although those claims have not been independently verified. If Silverstein were actually born in 1977, and the two were indeed close in age, supporters of this theory argue it would fit their alternate timeline. Others disagree, pointing out that publicly available biography websites are not always reliable sources. Even so, the conflicting information continues to attract attention from people trying to piece the timeline together. After the magazine, the email, the classmates, and the Yasmin Bleeth story, the discussion eventually shifted toward official royal paperwork. When Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor was born in May 2019, his birth certificate was initially filed using standard identifying information, including Rachel Meghan Markle as the mother's name. A short time later, the document was amended and her first and middle names were replaced with Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. The palace explained that the change was made for consistency with royal style. Even so, some royal commentators remarked that they could not recall seeing the same adjustment made in comparable circumstances involving Catherine, Princess of Wales, or Diana, Princess of Wales. Tom Bower has offered his own interpretation of that decision. According to his theory, leaving a legal name on an official document can make it easier for researchers to compare records such as school documents, passport applications, or Meghan's 2011 marriage certificate to Trevor Engelson. He suggests that removing the name could make those comparisons more complicated. Whether that interpretation is correct remains a matter of debate, but supporters of the theory argue that changing the document did not erase earlier records. It simply made the paper trail more difficult to follow. The conversation becomes even more intense when supporters of this theory start looking beyond individual dates and focus instead on the paper trail itself. They argue that official documents are designed to connect a person's history from one stage of life to the next. If those connections become more difficult to trace, they believe it naturally raises even more questions. Whether those suspicions are justified remains disputed, but it has certainly fueled years of speculation. Think about it. If someone wanted to compare the name on Archie's birth certificate with a school enrollment record from the 1980s, a passport application from the 1990s, or a marriage certificate from 2011, having the same legal name appear across every document would make that process straightforward and easy to follow. But if one of those records simply lists Duchess of Sussex instead of Rachel Meghan Markle, supporters of this theory argue that linking those records together becomes more complicated. That leads to the question many online commentators continue asking: why would anyone make an official paper trail more difficult to follow unless there was another reason for doing so? Critics see that as significant. Others believe there are perfectly ordinary explanations. Regardless of which view people accept, the debate quickly shifts to another subject entirely: motive. If Meghan had altered her age, as some claim, what reason would there have been? Supporters of that theory often point toward Hollywood itself. For decades, actors and actresses have spoken publicly about the pressure to appear younger in an industry where age can influence casting opportunities. One casting professional reportedly summed it up by saying, "If an actress is over 30 and unknown, you lose half the scripts overnight. Trim a few years and you double your chances." Before achieving worldwide recognition, Meghan spent years building her acting career through smaller opportunities. She accepted brief roles, background appearances, and television work while continuing to pursue larger projects. She appeared as a briefcase model on Deal or No Deal in 2006, launched a lifestyle blog, and continued working steadily until Landing Suits in 2011, the series that dramatically raised her public profile. Supporters of the alternate timeline argue that if Meghan was 30 when Suits began, the casting would appear entirely consistent with her public biography. But if she had actually been several years older, as they claim, they argue that it would have created a different picture. Others strongly dispute that conclusion, noting that performers frequently play characters whose ages differ from their own. Many people within the entertainment industry have acknowledged that adjusting or minimizing an actor's age has historically not been uncommon. Critics argue that such decisions are often viewed as career strategy rather than personal scandal. However, supporters of this theory contend that if inaccurate information were ever carried beyond entertainment resumes and into official records, they believe the discussion would become far more serious than simply protecting a Hollywood career. That is where some online commentators begin discussing possible legal implications. They speculate that if inaccurate personal information had ever appeared on official documents, questions could potentially arise about those records. However, any actual legal consequences would depend on specific facts, applicable laws, and findings by the relevant authorities or courts. No court has determined that Meghan provided false information about her age. The discussion also extends into wider speculation surrounding royal status and commercial partnerships. Some commentators argue that if fundamental biographical details were ever proven inaccurate, questions could be raised about public records or business representations. Others reject that idea, noting that such claims remain unproven. At this stage, these scenarios remain matters of speculation rather than established fact, even as they continue to generate widespread online debate. And the possible financial implications discussed by online commentators don't involve small numbers. The Netflix agreement alone was widely reported to be worth around $100 million. Because of that figure, some critics have speculated about what could happen if major biographical details connected to public records were ever proven inaccurate. Others strongly disagree with those arguments, pointing out that no evidence has established that such contracts were based on false personal information. Even so, the size of those reported deals is one reason this debate continues attracting so much attention. Take a moment to think about the bigger picture. According to those who support the alternate timeline theory, everything supposedly comes back to one simple detail: a birth year. They argue that a single number printed on official records could affect how people interpret an entire public biography. In their view, it isn't just about age anymore. It's about credibility, consistency, and whether decades of records all tell the same story. Supporters believe that if those records ever conflicted, the discussion could reach far beyond celebrity gossip. Yet through years of public debate, Meghan has not directly addressed these specific claims. There has been no public statement specifically responding to every allegation surrounding the alternate birth year theory. Her supporters argue that she has no obligation to respond to internet speculation. Others believe silence only encourages more questions. The debate continues because both sides interpret that silence very differently. Some commentators argue that if the timeline were completely beyond dispute, releasing additional documentation would immediately settle the matter. Others counter that public figures are not required to answer every theory circulating online, regardless of how popular it becomes. That difference in opinion has become part of the controversy itself. Instead of ending the conversation, each new article, interview, or social media discussion seems to keep it alive. What many people continue coming back to is one very basic question. Thomas Markle helped raise Meghan. According to the public record, he was present throughout her childhood, driving her to school, auditions, and family events. Samantha Markle has spoken publicly about growing up within the same family. Thomas Markle Jr. has also shared his own recollections over the years. Between those three relatives, many observers assume someone would be able to answer questions about Meghan's birth year with complete certainty. So why has the discussion remained so unsettled? Some online commentators believe Meghan has discouraged public contradictions of her official biography through legal action or the possibility of legal action, although those claims have not been independently verified. Others believe Thomas Markle simply prefers not to become involved in another public dispute. There are also people who think the Markle family possesses additional information, but has chosen not to reveal everything publicly. Those ideas remain speculative, but they continue circulating across social media and entertainment commentary. Whatever explanation people choose to believe, one point keeps resurfacing in discussions surrounding this story. The individuals who are often described as being in the best position to clarify the timeline have not produced a single public statement that has brought the debate to a definitive end. Supporters of the alternate theory often make another observation. They argue that birthdays are among the easiest facts for families to remember. Parents usually remember the day their children were born. Brothers and sisters generally know one another's ages. Because of that, critics say they find the continued uncertainty unusual. Others reject that conclusion entirely, arguing that family disputes, strained relationships, and conflicting public statements make these situations far more complicated than they appear from the outside. Years have now passed, and the discussion refuses to disappear. Every few months, another article, another interview, another old document, or another online post revives the same debate. Some people see a genuine mystery that deserves further investigation. Others believe the entire subject has been exaggerated far beyond the available evidence. The disagreement itself has become almost as famous as the original claims. Today, the official public record continues to identify Meghan as having been born on August 4, 1981. At the same time, critics continue pointing to Tom Bower's reporting, Samantha Markle's long-standing claims, the 17 magazine listing, the university timeline, and other details they argue deserve closer examination. None of those claims has resulted in an official finding that her publicly stated birth year is incorrect, and the discussion remains unresolved. Whether people believe the official version or the alternate theory, one thing is certain. This story has sparked years of debate, countless headlines, and endless conversations across the internet. Until new verified information emerges, supporters and skeptics will likely continue arguing over the same timeline for years to come. Now, it's your turn to weigh in. After hearing everything presented in this video, where do you stand? Do you believe the official timeline? Or do you think there are still unanswered questions that deserve closer examination? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective, and remember to keep the discussion respectful. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want more stories covering the royal family, headline controversies, and the biggest debates making waves around the world, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.